A good desk can be expensive, even more so a standing desk, so instead of paying a premium price, I decided to create my own custom wood-stained IKEA standing desk. Let's take a look, shall we? Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Now, if you want to work from home, are currently a student, or you just need a nice space to work on, a good quality desk is one of the most important things to have. These days, people spend up to 8 hours a day at their desk, and it's at this desk where you earn all of your income, or you set up the rest of your life by studying either at school or university. Now, I've been very vocal about the importance of a standing desk and the associated health benefits, so in this video, I'm going to show you how I created my desk and its custom stain, and give you some ideas and tips if you create something similar. Let me just switch up the shot real quick. That's better. Okay, so with standing desks, a lot of the times they can be really expensive, and even then you can't customize them to suit your own personal preference. This is where making your own standing desk can be a really fun process. Choosing the frame, desktop, and also experimenting with different stains. And I personally really like putting together my own custom standing desks because in the future, if I want to change the stain or the tabletop, for example, I can. Now, the first step in this process is finding a frame. So there's a lot of different options out there, such as cheap ones from IKEA or even eBay. The IKEA ones weren't my style, so I ended up picking mine up from a random office website for around $280 US, probably about 5 years ago now. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you get, but do try to get a relatively high quality one, and also make sure that the length is appropriate for the desktop that you want to buy. Bear in mind, the length of most standing desks are adjustable. Now, at this point, I would also recommend against getting one of those hand crank standing desks. The point of a standing desk is to be able to easily transition from sit to stand multiple times during the day, and it's going to be really off-putting if you have to stand at your desk for 2 minutes, cranking it up and down just to be able to stand. I honestly think most of the people that buy these hand crank standing desks end up not even using the standing function, and they just sit at their desks instead. Now, moving on to desktop, I've seen a couple of videos out there where people completely make their own desktop from scratch with bits of 2x4 or reclaimed wood. And while that is really cool and very interesting, for me personally, I'm not really into the whole woodworking thing, and I don't have the tools and the gear and the equipment in order to make my own custom desktop. Now, IKEA is a really good option for this if you don't have a local store that does wood near you. Most people tend to go for something like a Carlby, but it's not very deep at only 63 centimeters, and it's also not a blank canvas. Something like a Carlby is generally a solid piece of wood, and then you have little strips on the top that have been pre-stained to look a certain way, and that's not really the route that we want to take for our custom desktop. So instead, I would recommend looking in the kitchen section of IKEA. I ended up going for the Girton tabletop, which at 155 centimeters long and 75 centimeters deep is the perfect desk size in my opinion. And it's also made of solid beech wood, so it's a very sturdy tabletop, and you're not going to experience any kind of bowing in the middle if you have a heavy monitor, for example. Now, these thick, solid wood desktops are really good if you're like me and you tend to mount multiple monitors directly to the desk. And it's much better than something like a Lag Captain, which is literally made of cardboard paper inside. If you put anything heavy on those things, they're basically just gonna snap right in the middle, and all of your expensive gear is gonna be kaput. Now, although a good standing desk will make your life easier, something else that will make your life easier is a good VPN. Surfshark VPN will keep your online identity secure by encrypting all of the information sent between your device and the internet. You can connect and use as many devices as you like simultaneously. Surfshark has over 3,200 servers in 65 countries, giving you the ability to change your virtual location and access content libraries and streaming services like Netflix from other countries. Liberate yourself from online price discrimination, where prices rise for returning visitors or are higher if you are in a specific country. So if you're looking at booking flights or hotels, there is a high chance that you can get them cheaper with a VPN. So use the following link in the description down below and use code CREATED for 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Now, moving on to the staining process, and guys, this is pretty much the funnest part of the entire process. I recommend starting off by sanding down the surface of the tabletop with a low grit sandpaper, and then finishing it off with a high grit sandpaper to smooth everything out and prepare it for the staining process. However, if you don't want to bother with this, you can actually just go straight to the staining process. In my experience, it didn't really make a massive difference. Now, I ended up going through about 4 different cans of stain before I found one I really liked. So something I recommend doing to actually test out the stains and save you having to sand back the top of the desktop when you're finished is actually to flip the desktop over, apply the stain to the underside so you can test it, and then when you're happy with one, flip it back over and apply it to the top. Now remember to let the stain dry for at least a few hours, and this is so you can see the true color. You might also realize that you need several applications to bring out the wood grain and deepen the color. At this point, obviously, I do recommend reading the specific instructions for the stain you've selected because some of them can vary. Now, I was really picky and ended up completely sanding down the tabletop multiple times because I just wasn't happy with the final product. I finally settled on actually mixing 2 different types of stains together, the main one being a really dark wood grain called Black Japan, and this created a really rich, dark, moody wood color. Now, once the stain is fully dry, I recommend letting it dry at least 24 hours. Again, read the instructions for your specific stain. You can add a protective top coat, but I didn't do it in my situation because I was probably gonna sand it down and do it all again in 6 months to try out a different type of stain. So at this point, you've done the custom stained wood top and you can start on the build process of your overall custom standing desk. Now, the first thing you're gonna have to do, obviously, is build your standing desk frame. Make sure you make the length of the standing desk frame long enough. I recommend leaving about 1 inch or 2 on the sides as well, in case you wanna mount anything to the side of the desk. And make sure when you're attaching the actual frame of the desk to the top, you really make it secure. So get a drill or a screwdriver or whatever you have and some wood screws and really make sure that's secured, because if you ever move or need to drag the desk around, most people are gonna end up lifting it up by the actual desktop, and you don't want your desktop ripping off when someone tries to move it and all of your expensive gear falling to the floor. Now, at this point, I also recommend doing some cable management underneath the desk, so you can get crazy with this and a little bit creative. Personally, I just got a cable management tray from IKEA. You can also get these from eBay and other websites. There's a lot of different options out there, but this just helps keep the underside of your desk relatively neat and tuck all those excess cables away. If you're like me, you can also attach a power strip to the underside, and this means that you only need 1 single plug going from the desk into your wall, and it gives you a really, really clean and minimal final product. Now, if you want to really protect the surface of your desktop from stains or spills, or even condensating water from a glass of cold water, for example, I do recommend picking up a desk mat. I'll link the one I'm using down below, by the way, if you want to pick that one up. And if you want to add a little bit of flair to your desktop, you can also add a LED strip at the back. I'm using a 5-year-old Philips Hue strip that I bought years ago. It still totally works. And this is cool because it connects to your phone and you can pretty easily change the background lighting if you're into that kind of thing. So at this point, congratulations, you have your own custom stained standing desk. And the fun isn't over, guys. At this point, point, you can continue to work on it. So if you're not happy with the stain, you can sand it back and try some other stuff like I did. You can switch out the desktop or even the desk frame, and you can basically customize it and do whatever you want with it because everything is customizable. Now, at the end of the day, if you're not 100% satisfied with the final product, for example, there's a few flaws, if you're like me, you'll learn to love them because you did make this thing yourself. And if that's not enough, just remember that you saved probably a couple of $100 doing it yourself instead of paying some random company a 50 or 100% markup to make it for you.